And right, we're back with another episode of the On The Bench podcast. I'm your host, Jay Dan. And today's episode, I've got a special guest with me. Or should I say we've got a special guest. It's Dan, he's a nutritionist at Leeds United FC. So we're going to touch on some stuff about how nutrition works within football, what's healthy, what's not healthy. Mr. Cheeseburger Challenge, man. But we're going to touch on stuff like that. And it's going to be very interesting, man. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for coming down as well, man. And yeah, we're going to talk on some healthy stuff for once. So I'm looking forward to it. And also on the bench today, I got in the corner over there, Mr. Talk to Frank, a.k.a. Mr. Grinch, a.k.a. Mr. Roy Keane. Do you know Man United is unbeaten?
In 5 games.
Yeah.
I know that very, very well.
Well done, man. But yeah, before we get into Dan's interview, we're going to touch on some Premier League football. I want to start off with Arsenal today. Normally we start off with Man United, but not today. I want to start off with Arsenal. That was a hard game, man. Sunderland brought it to us.
They did.
In the first half, I said, oh my God. See, with Arsenal, yeah, we're that team, like, you know, within the first 15 minutes how we're playing. And if we're under pressure, we're not going to win. Like, and Sunderland brought it to us. And I don't think the title's over. We showed some fight to come back. But Sunderland, they also fought towards the end just as bad. I do believe Arteta should have went for it, though. He shouldn't have sat back and went for the draw. The way Sunderland was...
At 2-1.
At 2-1. Finish the game. Don't take off... and that's why we lost. Because you're inviting pressure. You're sitting back, letting them play. No, goal. Sometimes the best defence is attack. And I think that's what's cost us. But, yeah, I do think we're still in a strong position because after the international break, we got... Madueke should be back. Gyökeres will be back. So... It's looking good, man.
Big game, no? Straight after the international break.
I know it's a North London derby, man. I'm looking forward to that one.
Same.
I reckon we'll bash them out, man. We're too strong for them at the moment. I reckon we'll bash them.
Is it at yours or their place?
The Emirates. Yeah.
They're better away from home than they are at home. But I think that you're also very, very strong at home.
We're very strong.
Yeah.
Do you think Arsenal can win the league, then?
I think this year is their chance. You know, last year everybody was saying it was their chance to do it. And then it just fell away towards the end. Whereas this year, it feels like there's a stronghold. I think with Sunderland, though, like you say, Xhaka's interview now is kind of coming back around in circles. Stadium of Light, what do you think of Fire? And it's actually, you know what? He's come to life and he's some player this season for Sunderland, holding that midfield together. Yeah.
But when he left, even when he left us that season, that last season, he was firing. I was like, don't go now.
He finally started to hit form.
Yeah, do you know that? Yeah. Obviously, he was a bit sloppy before, yellow cards. He had the old thing when he's like to the fans and that. But then he just turned up scoring goals. He was magnificent, and then he left, and then now he's gone by Leverkusen, won the league with them, firing. He's in the Sunderland team. Are they second or third now?
No, I think they've dropped a few positions now with that draw, but they're still in like the top.
They're still in the top six. Let's just say they're looking good. So
they're strong.
It shows how much of a good player Xhaka and a leader at that as well. Like he's such a leader, man. But looking forward to the season now, man. Yeah, definitely. Last stuff about Arteta.
He started moaning already, hasn't he?
Yeah, he said something.
He's already started moaning.
What did he say?
You know what? I'm sorry, man, but he's done such a great job at Arsenal.
Yeah.
But I do not want to see this manager win the league. I just don't want to see him win the league. It's not about Arsenal. It's not about your players or your fans. It's him. I don't like him. There's something about him I don't like. It's just the way he is, the way he carries himself, man. He irritates me so much.
Why though?
Do you know what? For a manager that's not really won anything major, he puts himself as like the elites. Even yesterday, there was a moment on a touchline or during the game when something happened and you could just hear him screaming and it was just it's a 50-50.
Yeah.
It's not like blatantly wrong. And I'm like, bro, calm yourself.
But he's a brilliant manager though.
He's a very good manager. He's a very good manager.
You can't knock Arteta anything
I'm not knocking him. I'm knocking the way he carries himself.
But it's getting him far though.
But is it though?
It is. Of course it is.
Yeah,
how's it not?
You win something, you can't say that.
It's his first managing job.
Yeah, but he's had 6 years now. 5-6 years.
It's his first job at Arsenal.
Right.
Not at, no disrespect to no every lower league club. I'm not going to call it any club. Like a lower league level club, shall I say. It's at Arsenal. Do you know what that means? Do you know what Arsenal, like what we're trying to do right now? And what he is doing at Arsenal and what he's got the players doing.
But you know what, Jay?
He's one of the best managers in Europe at the moment.
It takes me back to he is. He has to be because Arsenal are one of the best teams in Europe.
Though.
Yeah. What do you reckon? What's your thoughts on Arteta?
My thoughts are like it's clear, like you say, sometimes he can be very irate and aggressive on the touchline, but then I think he's learnt from Pep. And Pep is very similar to that at times. Now today, when I was listening on the way down, I was listening to the game, and they were saying it was the first time on BBC Radio Live, they were saying that they've seen Pep stood still this whole, I think it was his 1,000th game that he managed today. And they were saying this is the first time they've seen him actually like at peace, you know, once they hit that 3-0 margin, where he was actually calm for once. So actually what you've got to do is look at, you know, where he's come from and the people that he's learnt from. And if he's learnt from Pep, you know he's going to be a manager that's going to be animated on the touchline, going up to the fourth, screaming at 50-50s. But I think, you know, ultimately, we're getting to that point where, like you said, they've not won anything yet. I think they've got to win something, and then you can start talking about him being a good or a great manager.
I still think he's a great manager. The way he's transformed the team, he's brought the fan base back. Arsenal was very toxic at the time, so toxic. And there's love back. Atmospheres that fans believe again, and I think to be able to do that in where Arsenal was, you have to.
I respect that. I've said it before in this podcast. I respect what he's done at Arsenal. He's done a fantastic job. Okay, but at the same time, it's a personal thing with me. It's just me. It's just the way he is. I just don't like the way.
Are you a hater?
No.
You're a hater. You can't be a hater.
If I was a hater, I would be like, no, he's not a great manager. No. I'm not a hater because he's a very, very good manager. I accept that.
Would you have him at Man United?
Over
Amorim?
He'd drive me crazy. No, you can't say that because Amorim's been there for less than a year. So it's hard.
No, but what manager do you prefer? Would you prefer Amorim?
I prefer the way Amorim carries himself. 100%.
You never answered my question. What manager would you prefer at Man United?
Amorim.
Arteta or Amorim?
Amorim, I'm sticking with my guy,
you're
man.
chatting
Yeah, I'm sticking to my guy.
You're lying.
Listen,
You're lying.
No. Hold on. When you manage a team like Man United, you need to know how to be. You need to be a certain type of way. And certain managers haven't been that type of way. That's why they've come under pressure, because the way they carry themselves, the way they dress, the way they speak. Arteta, I don't like the way he speaks because he's not honest. He blames the
managers
officials a
ain't
lot.
honest though.
Yeah, but
It's football.
I understand that, but I don't like the way he speaks. I don't like the way he carries himself. I don't like his arrogance when he's won nothing. I don't like the way he's aggressive on a touchline. I don't like the way he's got you lot taking a minute and a half over each set piece. That would drive me nuts. That would drive me crazy. Every time I watch you lot, it's jarring. It's so jarring. And you'll sit there and then it'll be 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, and then bang, set piece goal. And him and his set piece coaches and all that, like, cool.
Football's about winning.
Yeah. You guys, but that's not the Arsenal way, though, is it? That's not the Arsenal way.
It is now.
We've had Arsenal coaches.
No, but it is now. Are
you proud of your team?
Changes.
Are you proud of the way you're playing?
We're top of the league. Why would I not be proud of my team that's top of the league? And we're being called the best team in Europe at the moment. We're one of the best teams in Europe at the moment. We're looking to win the league, possibly. We should go far in the Champions League. Of course I'm proud of my team. Why would I not be?
Are you proud of the way they play? Are you proud when you're seeing your players rolling around on the floor? Are you proud for 30, 40 seconds?
I'm proud of my team. Because Arsenal used to be weak.
Yeah.
Weak. People used to
now
come...
But now you've gone too far the other way. This is what I tried to say to you.
Yeah, but I prefer how we are now to how we was. Like, I'm one of them fans that remember how bad we was.
Fair enough.
There's a lot of Arsenal fans that's forgotten how poor Arsenal and how soft. And we used to go Man City, get bashed up 4-0. Go Liverpool, get bashed up 5-1. Go... Any top 6 team, you know, it's weak. Yeah. People used to laugh at Arsenal. Now you can't. So I'm proud of myself.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Man.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But like I said, for me, sorry, I know we're going on a bit.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It's not for me. It's not about the team. It's not, and I know he's massively responsible for that team. But let me take you back to what I said a couple of weeks ago, where there's that montage of fixtures, a run of games. I think it was 9 or 10 games when you lot had lost pretty much every one apart from one.
Yeah.
But that was during the pandemic. There was no fans. I promise you, I guarantee you, if there was fans in that stadium, some could argue that you wouldn't have lost all those games. But had you have done, he would have been out of the job a long time ago. But because there was no pressure from the fans, you lot were able to carry on and do what you needed to do and stick with him and go the right way. Do you understand? Which is fair enough. It's testament to the board.
Yeah,
you understand? Fair enough. And listen, as I said, I respect what he's done massively. I do. He's done a fantastic job, and I completely agree with you. You're a tough team to break down. You're a tough team to beat. I mean, yesterday was a great result for Sunderland. Fantastic result. Draw. Brilliant result.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Well, we both kind of come back, but for them to get the draw at the end of it against Arsenal, that's got the best.
Score 2 goals.
Score
2 goals against you in one game. Amazing achievement in itself.
I knew they was gonna score from the. Like I said, watch Arsenal. You know from the first 5-10 minutes. Yeah, you know, man. But anyway, let's move on from Arsenal, Frank's favourite team. We're gonna jump into the Tottenham Man United game. It was an early kickoff, 12:30. I don't know. How do you feel about 12:30 kickoffs when it's like a big game like that? Do you feel like it should be a 5:30 kickoff on Saturday, and we should have been 12:30? I feel like it should have been the other way around. I think I don't know, man. I don't like when the massive teams play so early in the morning. What do you think about that?
I think it's too early. I think
Too early as well, yeah.
I don't think it gives chance for the anticipation of the event to
Yeah,
build up.
yeah.
Like a 5:30, you've got all day to kind of mull over it.
Yeah.
You've got the build up, and I think what they do really well on some of it is they build up the other games during those games. They're constantly reminding you that the Arsenal game's coming up against Sunderland or another game's coming up. They don't really, although they do focus on that game, they don't completely focus on that game.
Yeah.
When it's the last game of the day, that's all everybody's eyes are turning to. When it's 12:30, people are looking at what the teams are and coming out, you know, as that game's starting to end, trying to work out, you know, whether the fantasy football is going to be all right and stuff like that. People are switching off from that game towards the end of it, where actually, like you say, you flip those games and you could have had a completely different game at 5:30.
That could have been. They had an 8 o'clock game on Saturday. Chelsea, Wolves, 8 o'clock. That could have been an 8 o'clock game.
I think one of the reasons why they do the big games as early kickoffs is to not have the fans enough time to have too many. Do you know what I mean? Not too many back and be a bit more sort of. Yeah.
Initially 5:30 then.
Yeah, but even 5:30. I mean, somebody's got to be in the pub by like midday.
No, but then 4:30 is a normal Sunday kickoff. I think the fight. I don't know.
Well, that was the initial reason. I mean, I don't know why they do it now, especially when you consider Spurs played in Europe midweek as well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I know it's only a few hours, but at that level, you know better than we do. Every percentage counts. You know what I mean? Every minute counts. So yeah. But no, I thought it was it was similar to the Forest game for us. We took the lead, then conceded 2, looked like we were going to lose the game, and then scored right at the end. So shows good character, man. Away from home, 2 games in a row, 11 points from 15 for United.
Progress.
Yeah,
that's what you want to see, I suppose. At this stage now, you want to see progress going into January, and if you make a couple of signings in January, you need a centre mid.
Yeah.
And then you start going forward from even next season now. You know, all right, we're improving. Next season, you get some other old players out, bring some more in, then you've got something to look forward to going into the new season. So I think you're heading in the right direction.
Slowly but surely. But I want to give a shout out to Matthijs de Ligt, who I think has been unbelievable for us this season. He's just getting better and better, going from strength to strength. He actually looks like a potential future captain for us as well. And
the way he reads the game, he done an interception yesterday. He just,
He's been doing that all season, and he's the only player that's played every minute of the Premier League season for us this season. And he obviously got the header on the weekend as well. Really, really good header at the end. But he's been immense, man. He's been solid. And do you know what? He's such a throwback centre back. He's just old school. Put everything on the line. A bit like Dan Ballard the other day. He came through the Arsenal academy, didn't he? No, but I like these because that's the defenders that we grew up watching. Defenders tough, you know what I mean? Put everything on the line. Now it's all about Rolls Royce defenders and, you know, defenders that can bring the ball out from the back and, you know, pass the ball. But you want to see defenders defend. You know what I mean? Put their head anywhere, tackle, all that kind of stuff. And I rate him a lot, man. He's been really good for us this season.
Dan, I want to ask you a question quickly. What do you think about Mbeumo at Man United at the moment?
At least he's in my fantasy football team.
I think he's in all of ours.
So very happy. I think he took a bit of time to get started, didn't he? And I think he came from Thomas Frank's Brentford that obviously had set things up in and around him. And I think when you've got to learn to play with other players that are potentially more skillful than the players that he was around at Brentford, I think it takes time to get used to that better delivery and better performance. I think going back to what you said about centre-backs though, like obviously not throwing any shade on De Ligt, but Harry Maguire has saved you a few times this season with his head on both ends of the pitch. And then, you're talking about putting your head in the wrong places as a centre-back. I think he's been brilliant at times. And again, you know, it's one of those aspects where we forget about those old school defenders. I think, you know, we talk too much, like you say, about these Rolls Royces playing out from the back, whereas actually sometimes you just need somebody
Vidic, John Terry.
Who can just get the head on it, all of that kind of stuff. But and Mbeumo for me, I think, you know, he's coming into his own now in that team. He's finding where he fits. And he's getting the delivery now, which I think he wasn't at the start of the season. Maybe down to some poor form from Man United, but ultimately he's always going to, you know, be in good form when Man United are in good form.
That's true, Do you know, I think struggling and you're not seeing the best of Bruno, man.
Because he's playing as an 8.
He's missed, but this is Ahmad played on the wing. He played on the
he played
right,
back,
Do you want to see Bruno pushed up further?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think it will happen when Mbeumo goes to AFCON. I hope it happens. I hope he brings in Mainu next to Casemiro and pushes Bruno.
But don't you want to see Bruno, Cunha, even Ahmad and then like a 10.
Do you know what? I've said this before, and people laugh at me sometimes when I say this. I would love to see Bruno as the number 9, but as a false 9. Honestly.
Oh, so you want Cunha on the left?
Yes.
And Bumo.
Cunha on the right and Bumo on the left.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. No,
Cunha on the left, and Bumo on the right. Yeah.
And then Bruno false 9.
Look,
but what about Ahmad though?
No, Ahmad right wing back still. Ahmad's
do you
still a right wing back.
Do you think you get the best out of him as a right wing back though? Any more of
He
an
plays well.
attacking
He
player,
plays well, man. Do you know what? Let me tell you something about Ahmad. And this happened in the final against Spurs in the Europa League final. When he plays as a 10, don't get me wrong, he's effective, he's good, but he has his back to goal a lot. You want Ahmad facing the goal. When he plays as a right wing back, he'll pick the ball and he'll run. And when he's direct like that, he's harder to clamp down.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like, don't get me wrong, he's obviously defensively, he was always going to be a little bit suspect, which is why you've got 3 at the back and why you expect the midfielders to help back. But I wouldn't say he's mastered that position yet, but he's so important for us there. He plays really, really well for us there. I like Ahmad there.
Do you not think Bruno has to do a little bit too much of that tracking back at the moment,
does,
which is what's causing the lack of attack from him because he's covering because he's 3
that's
at
right.
the back.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. And Casemiro, do you know what? Again, the other day he came off and it all unfolded, man. Same as against Forest. He came off and everything went. We need someone. Because we finally managed to get him a position that suits him, the right cover around him. Because remember last season and he was struggling. But when he goes off the pitch, the defensive cover that comes on, I'm not going to name any individuals, but they're just not on that level, man. Yeah. He reads the game so well, man.
Call him out.
No, it's all good. They're my boys. They're my boys, man. They're my boys, man.
You know, people know what's going on, man. What your opinions?
It's all good. But look, I've already said to you before, we do need a central midfielder in the summer.
100%.
Or in January if we can, but probably the summer. But it's got to be Elliot Anderson, man.
That's you want now.
He's
so
the
you
guy.
done with the believer thing?
No. We need 2. Yeah. Because Bruno could leave as well as Casemiro.
You can't. You want to really let go of Bruno? Though.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
But if Saudi come calling for 70, 80 million again,
you're gonna need to, and then that funds other areas.
That's it,
so.
And he's going to be 31, I think, as well. So I feel like Bruno's a kind of player that could still play at a very. If Bruno goes to like Serie A or the Bundesliga or Liga, he'll play until he's like 38, easily at a high level. But in the Premier League, obviously, the amount of like the mileage that you clock up in the Premier League is ridiculous, you know. So yeah.
Tottenham. Let's start to talk about the game. They kind of struggled, man. There was like a bit of a gap between the defense and the midfield. It was in the attacking area. It was empty.
Yeah.
I think they're missing obviously Kulusevski, Madison.
Yeah.
But
They've got no
Simmons,
cutting edge.
Yeah, I thought Xavi Simmons would be able to step into that 10 and kind of show something, but he's struggling in the Premier League. Man.
A lot of the fans were booing when he came off the pitch, not because of his poor performance, but the fact he'd been dragged. I think they were disappointed they didn't get to see him for a full 90.
Yeah.
I think they were looking for that, to see him kind of turn it on when there's some tired legs out there and be able to give it a little bit more and do what he's good at.
I think Tottenham's going to, I got a feeling going to fall off though, man.
The fans are already starting to get on Thomas Frank's back.
Yeah,
they're already starting to get on his back.
And this is Tottenham though. They start off well, they look good, and then they always just...
They've done it with Ange, innit?
They just can't hold. They just can't hold on. But I think they need more investment within their team. They need to buy more players,
quality players as well,
and they need a strong bench. Like Arsenal for years. Sorry about Arsenal, but we've always had a good starting 11. No, we've always had a good starting 11, but now
it's true. Yeah,
like when all our players are back, I know I'm going to look at my bench and say,
bring him on. Or bring
him on.
Like, change anyone out.
Never had that. So, and Tottenham's been like that for. They're the same as Arsenal. Been like that. Like their bench is always weak. Like
I think with Arsenal, it's the versatile players that you've got on the bench that you can bring on in different positions.
Yeah, agreed.
You can play Saka out wide. You can drop him in the middle if you need to.
Eze and
all of those players have multiple roles. Whereas at Spurs, it feels like you've just got like for like swaps.
Like for like, so but that's why I've always said to Frank about Arsenal. We sign players that can play within multiple positions. Like Eze can play the 10, left wing. Saka can play everywhere.
It's important. No, it's important, man. It's very important. It's and look, there's not a lot of players that can do that. There aren't a lot of players that can do that. They are versatile. Like you said, Saka started off as a left back.
He's played everywhere.
He's playing right wing now.
Do you
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's crazy, man. But moving forward, let's jump into the Man City Liverpool game. I was driving back, guys. I'm gonna be honest. I was watching it in the car, and I wasn't driving and watching it. By the way,
listening to it.
Yeah, no. I mean, I was driving back like with my missus. I was I was passenger seat. Let's just make that clear.
Okay.
I was driving passenger seats. I was, it's already in the car. You can't watch it properly. But City, man, they look the part. They're our only
The machine's
problem
getting
this
going.
year.
The machine's getting going.
That's it.
Pep,
Cranking it up.
please, man. Let your boy just win something, bruv. Like, be the nice boss. Like, you know, like, just, I got, you know, like, come on, Pep, man, bruv. Don't do this to us, please. I think they're going to catch us, you know.
Well, Christmas period. This is the best period for football.
Yeah.
It's the most interesting period.
Arsenal, going back. I'm doing the French. Arsenal, we fall off like February times.
Yeah.
And City they're just not stopping. It's just Haaland guy as well. He's
a machine,
oh,
man. He missed the penalty and he still scored.
Yeah.
Just going and going and going. What do you think about Liverpool this season now, man?
I think they started off really well.
Yeah.
And it kind of pains you to see it a little bit like such a good team with, again, some good investment, some good players off the bench. Although today when I kind of heard, I was driving and I was actually driving, so I was listening to it on the radio. And it was like when Arnie was making subs, it didn't feel like they were powerful subs.
Yeah.
Whereas like you said about Arsenal, and I don't want to blow smoke up his ass any more than what he needs. But like when you think about Arsenal, the players they bring on, they could be starting. Whereas he was bringing on players that you maybe be trying to rest legs because they've got European fixtures or they have had, and they were talking about the kind of the fatigue and tiredness of Madrid and how that might have played into effect in this game. But actually, when you think about it, you've got two big games coming up as a footballer, so you lock in, you switch on for those two big games, whether it's Madrid, whether it's Man United, Man City, whoever. You always build towards those two games as kind of like get through this period and then we're into the international break. And I feel like they just didn't bring that fire today, did they? That disallowed goal we were speaking about off air about how that could have changed the course of the game.
100% it would have changed it. It would have been 1-1 at that point. And then it's, do you know what I mean? That City, the doubt creeps in their mind, and it shouldn't have been disallowed, to be fair. Shouldn't be disallowed. But Liverpool are struggling.
What was it disallowed for?
Offside.
Robinson.
Robertson in front of the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Goalkeeper didn't get in there, man.
That was a shaky one, man.
That's not offside.
Because he wasn't blocking the goalkeeper's view at all.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
when I saw, I thought he was gonna give it as a goal, but it's Man City, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what? No, but what I would say is Liverpool always get the rub of the green.
Yeah.
For the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I know Liverpool fans are gonna kill me for this, but you've had a lot of luck, man. You've had a lot of luck. Like you've got a lot of 50-50 decisions go their way.
Was that even a penalty?
I don't think it was a penalty, by the way.
That's another thing.
So sorry,
That's another thing.
2 in 1 game,
That wasn't a penalty as well.
I don't think that was a penalty.
No, that
It
wasn't. He got the ball
minimal
as well.
contact. No, he didn't get the ball.
He touched it.
Minimal contact.
But all right.
He's gonna bring on Arsenal. No, you're not allowed to listen. You can't speak about Arsenal anymore.
I'm not gonna do it.
That's
But
it.
that game when the goalkeeper took out who was it again? Who took out?
Was it Arsenal goalkeeper?
Gyökeres. Remember? And we didn't get the
Leeds.
penalty.
Was it Leeds?
No.
Oh, not Leeds.
It was a big game. Was it City? Yeah, it was Donnarumma.
Yeah,
I think
it was City.
he took out
Yeah,
Gyökeres. I think
it
it
was
was.
City,
I think it was that game.
Yeah.
There was a game in here. Gyökeres got taken out. And
That one a penalty, yeah.
It was a penalty.
Sorry, that was a penalty.
Yeah, it was a penalty. That's what I'm saying. But they said he touched the ball a touch or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And he had a similar, got a touch of the ball, minimum contact on the player like that. And if it was Donnarumma, don't quote me. He took out Gyökeres. So it just shows you City. This money, man. this money is
That's what you're up against, mate.
yeah.
Ain't easy to win this Premier
We're up
League.
against cheating. Cheat codes. We're up against cheat codes, man.
Yeah. I just feel like Liverpool are. I said at the beginning of the season, it was my hot take.
Yeah.
I said either Arteta or Arne Slot could lose their jobs this season.
Wow.
And I feel like, you know what it is? I just couldn't see them finishing first and second. And I didn't think Liverpool would be this bad, to be fair. But I just thought, if they struggle.
This bad,
Yeah. But not to say that they can't recover. They can. They can definitely recover. Things can change very quickly. But he's under pressure, man. Even listening in, I was listening to some fans speaking about him. They're not happy, man. A lot of the Liverpool fans are not happy with Arne Slot.
5 in 6 now in the Premier League.
They've lost. Yeah. That's unacceptable, man. That's a really
from being champions as well. So
Yeah.
and the money they've spent.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Big
we
money.
all knew the pressure. Remember, the pressure's a lot to win the Premier League back to back. Obviously, there's been a lot happening at Liverpool also within the players.
Yeah.
The change room must be a bit different now.
Yeah.
So you've got to take those into consideration. I think they'll stick with Slot for another season. I don't think they'll get rid of him.
Well, it depends how it goes. All right, let me just say something here. This is going to sound controversial. I watched Mo Salah today. I watched Mo Salah against City. and the amount of times that he was offside was ridiculous. It was almost like he didn't even care anymore, because 2 or 3 of those were like, you have to look. You have to look at the line. You should not be offside there.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like you're closing in on a box and everything. Like, you're getting the ball to build the attack and you're offside there.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. And I just looked at his body language and his head just dropped one of the times. And I'm thinking, they don't want this guy, man. They're not happy with this guy. And a lot of Liverpool fans' argument that aren't happy with Slot is he won the league last year, yes, but with Jurgen Klopp's team. This summer they spent a ton of money, and it's his team. Whether or not he had a big say in it, I don't know, but it's still his team now. Because of the amount of changes that they made to the first team. When you think of Kirkes, Isak, Wirtz.
But it's new players getting used to a new system, and big names at that as well. So it very rarely works straight away at that. Isak struggling. Wirtz does look good. He is creating a lot of chances, but he's still struggling within his system because they're not playing to Salah's strengths. Trent's gone as well, who was
he was important for them.
Important attacking wise. Him and Salah, they had the link up. Obviously, he's good at picking up a pass, so they're gonna struggle, man. It's hard.
Florian Wirtz against Man City looked like an under-18s player. I'm not joking. I know that sounds horrible to say, but he just looked all like out. Every time he got the ball, he was trying to do something. He was getting caught in a cul-de-sac, getting the ball nicked off him easily, and he was just getting at one point he just laid down on the floor. He was like, "What am I doing here?"
Yeah, I think Haaland also made a comment. I think it was midweek about how little he's been offside since he's been at Man City.
Erling Haaland
saw that, right. It was something around like 18 times he's been offside in the whole time that he's been there. And I think, you know, one of the reporters was saying, well, yeah, when you've got Kevin De Bruyne's delivery, you don't need to turn around. You just need to be facing goal.
You just got to make the run. You know he's
the ball's going to come over left, right, through your legs, wherever it'll come.
Madness, isn't it?
It's interesting how, you know, Salah in that game must have been 3-4 times offside
at
today.
At least.
Whereas, you know, Haaland 18 times in his career at Man City, I believe, was what he was bragging about midweek. Mental.
I think De Bruyne does play a massive part. I wouldn't be offside, mate. But we're gonna move on. Time is flying, man. We're gonna have to jump into some questions, man. We can't get to some more games. It's going so quick. Wow. But all right, cool. So let's jump into some questions for Dan. For people who don't know, who are you and what's your role at Leeds United?
So I'm Dan Richardson. I'm an academy performance nutritionist. My background's in nutrition and, as we were saying, off-air rugby, really.
Okay.
I started out in rugby as a player and then became a nutritionist within rugby. Worked within professional rugby league, and then moved over to football and then consulting in all of the sports as a nutritionist. But I've spent a fair bit of time in football now working as a nutritionist, so I've seen lots of different things done right and done badly, and I'm sure we'll get into them in this podcast.
Yeah. Okay, sick. So where did you grow up and what was life like for you as a kid, man?
So I'm from York originally, hence the Yorkshire accent.
Okay.
So I've kind of worked my way back over to Yorkshire by being at Leeds United, and then I always say the majority of my work's down the M1 corridor. Even getting here today was pretty much all the way down the M1 to the absolute bottom of the M1. So I grew up in York, state school kid, played a lot of rugby, and then decided that, well, I had a choice really of becoming a semi-pro rugby player, which I thought was going to be the one. I thought, you know, you get told this as a kid, don't you? That your chance comes. I had a contract thrown in front of me. I think off the top of my head it was like 60 quid a week. So I turned around to my dad and I'm like, Dad, look, this is the one. And he just kind of laughed and went, £60 a week, son. He was like, you won't be able to get your food in for that. As a rugby player. So I went off to university instead. Didn't sign the contract. Spent 3 years at Durham University, which is considered a prestigious uni, especially for a Yorkshireman. It was quite interesting. It was like being down south in like the Eton area. Everybody basically migrates up to Durham to do the uni. I didn't realise that. I thought it was going to be full of Geordies and full of people from Durham. Turns out I was like one of the only Yorkshire people there. Continued playing rugby, played at a decent level while I was there, and then moved over to Manchester. So I spent a bit of time studying my master's degree at Manchester Metropolitan, and that was where I kind of became a nutritionist. So I spent a very brief period at Man City in their academy as a nutrition assistant. We did cooking workshops with some of the players. I'd say probably off the top of my head, I can't remember anybody that's notable.
Let me stop you there. We're gonna get further into there. So anyway, back to the childhood slave. So would you say you was more into rugby or football? And is there a football team you support for people that don't know? Is it Leeds or is it somebody else?
No, my dad would kill me if I said Leeds United. although I do follow the results and do keep an eye on the players. And I'm probably a bit of a closet Leeds United fan as I've worked there for the past 3 years. York City. obviously being from York, I think as my dad describes it, Leeds got the money and York didn't, and that's why they went down the leagues in his estimation.
That's why.
His opinion.
That's why,
I'm sure other people could tell us otherwise, but ultimately, York City. I've been and watched them at Wembley 3 times. Seen them be successful once and twice, obviously. Crash out and back into the National League as they are now. I remember the year that they got onto FIFA was the first year my dad bought me FIFA.
No way.
When they were in League 2, he wouldn't buy it any other time. I had to save up my pocket money. And that year, he proudly walked through the door with FIFA and went, there you go, son. You better play as York City. Yeah. I had a good go at getting him up the leagues, probably about 3 or 4 games in, and I thought, I can't do this. And probably ended up playing as an Arsenal or a Man United, to be honest, just because of the team.
I always used to think that, like growing up, like I wonder if like people who support like a lower level club, if they play with them on FIFA, like.
Oh yeah. I wasn't allowed on my ultimate team. I wasn't allowed any other kit other than the York City kit. My dad walked in and saw me playing with a different kit on it. Like, the York City one's cheap. You can get hold of it. It was about 200 coins to buy the York City kit. Yeah.
Oh, so your dad's die hard.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever played Football Manager?
I've not. No, I haven't played it. No.
Just give that a whirl, like the old school ones.
Yeah.
Give that a whirl. Get them into the Champions League, and then show your pups and just say, look what I've done.
That's it. I've got just about enough time till Christmas to sim through all the games and then make his Christmas.
That's it.
Yeah. So, fact you're a nutritionist. Have you always been into like health from a young age, or what's it been like?
Yeah. To be honest, I would argue my nutrition has not always been the healthiest because I've been an athlete. I don't think often like an athlete and nutrition is actually that healthy, especially when you're trying to work your way through, kind of academies or clubs. I think now there's so much more provision. But back when I was a, young rugby player, I had no guidance. It was kind of looking on bodybuilding forums and listening to the guy down the pub who looked a bit bigger than me to see what I could do. And I was, eating my parents out of house and home. I was eating 4 chicken breasts a night with 4 wraps, thinking I was getting big. I was like, now I look back and I know the science, and I'm going, that just didn't work. That's not what I'd advise to anybody. And anyone listening, do not eat 4 chicken breasts for your evening meal. That is not what you need. But ultimately, it was that side of it.
That's what I do, man. I thought if I eat loads of chicken, a couple protein shakes, I'm gonna be
no,
Mike Tyson.
all about the carbohydrates to get bigger.
Serious?
Yeah. So when it comes to protein, our body can only absorb so much.
Yeah.
So I know we don't want to go too sciencey, but there's something called muscle protein synthesis that means that we can't actually absorb more than 40 grams of protein in one sitting. So typically speaking, for an athlete, you're talking about 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram. Okay. So if you weighed 100 kg, you'd be looking at 160 to 220 grams per day. We've got to split that across the day equally to get the best out of our muscles. Whereas what I was doing was saving up all my protein to the evening, thinking I'm going to get massive. That's what you say. I just eating it all at once, thinking this is it, and then looking in the mirror wondering where my biceps were. Actually, what I should have been doing was eating more carbs to give my body more fuel to build more muscle.
Oh my God. So I've always been told that carbohydrates ain't good for you. Like potato. Is it certain carbs though?
Yeah. It depends. I think, like you just mentioned, potatoes. Potatoes are good carbs in moderation. All carbs are good in moderation. I think where we get it wrong with good and bad carbs is sweets are carbohydrates. In theory, sugars are carbohydrates. So people start saying that, if you eat too many carbs, it's going to be unhealthy. Okay. But that's because they're looking at the sugars and the sweets that you possibly have. Whereas the long-lasting starchy carbs, or pasta, rice, potatoes, etc., are all really good towards kind of cultivating better performances in sport, but also looking towards kind of like overall health and longevity as well. We need energy in the body every day. For you to be on this podcast, and shout at each other the way that you do, you need that energy. So we'll carb you up.
I'm not going to tell you what's giving me energy, mate.
I've seen what's giving you energy.
Rookie off camera. Don't worry, it's legit stuff. Don't worry about it.
Only good.
But let's get back to the so when you left school, what did you study at first? Was it always nutrition, or was it always part of the plan also as well?
Also, to be honest, I left school not knowing what I wanted to do, but knowing that I wanted to be involved in sport. That was literally set the bar low, make sure that you can go somewhere. So make sure, somewhere in sport. That could have been a, PT, it could have been a fitness instructor, could be working with athletes like I am now, but ultimately it was trying to work within sport or at least play sport, one of the two. So I ended up going and studying a BTEC in sports science at college after I finished school. Yeah. And kind of that just opened the door to all of the sports science. Yeah. And then ultimately that then gave me the opportunity to study that at Durham as well. Yeah. And even then, when I was doing, 3 years at Durham and enjoying the the party life of being a student at times a little bit too much. I kind of didn't really know where I was going to go. It was very much kind of trying to work out, you know, am I going to be a physio, an S&C, a nutritionist, a psychologist? All those doors were still, you know, ajar. I wouldn't say they were wide open. And then I realised that, like, I think it was like third year uni, found a bit of a passion for nutrition, realised I'd done it wrong. And I think that's where I didn't want people to go wrong. So that led me to go and study it for a full year off the back of a sports science degree, and then obviously into what I'm doing now.
Okay, sick, man. With the nutritionist thing, like, is it hard? Is it hard to study at university? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so I'd say it depends really, because I think when you've got a passion in something, it doesn't feel like hard work. Like, there probably were days where, you know, you've got long assignments or dissertations. My dissertation in my master's was like 20,000 words, which nobody needs to be writing 20,000 words.
What was it on then? What was it on, if you don't mind asking?
It got published in the end, which was good. It ended up being a research paper that went out to publication, which is brilliant. So we worked with a academy rugby team, and we looked at the ingestion of high carbohydrate solution drink, so above kind of 18% solution. So you think about your Lucozades. Imagine Lucozade, but, you know, beefed up, loads more carbs in there. And we looked at the difference with tackle technique, running performance, and then perceived exertion. So how hard it felt. And what we found across the study was ultimately the more carbs they ingested, or the carbs, versus the placebo, which had nothing in it. It was quite literally, I was making them in my kitchen at the time. It was literally just like sugar-free squash. But ultimately, we found that tackle technique was consistent. So I ended up reviewing like over, I think it was 180 tackles of these players going into contact to see whether their technique dipped from performance. Oh, wow. So you think about like football and trying to relate it more back to football. It's almost like looking at the 90th minute, how many defenders are making sloppy tackles and you know, going through people's legs
due to what's in their body.
And there's a combination approach with carbs, energy and concentration. So that's what I was looking at, is can they stay concentrated during a ridiculously hard drill that they were doing through using more carbs, and can they keep the energy high so they can perform the actions? Right. Turns out carbs were beneficial. So they published, the paper got published, and that's my only publication to date so far.
Yeah, but that's some achievement, man. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So what qualifications do you need within nutritionists to become like a football nutritionist for the people that don't know? Yeah.
Definitely. I think, you know, the first one really is to get a good solid undergraduate degree. I think nowadays when you look at the job adverts and the things that are around that, there's nothing really that suggests that you need any more than an undergraduate degree. And then looking towards a master's just to top up your qualifications, which is quite a lot, I know it might seem, but it really kind of sets you apart from the others that maybe are trying to get into the industry as well. Yeah. And for me, I think, you know, ultimately it's the experience as well. You know, I spent a lot of time in unpaid roles or underpaid roles, should we say, as well, learning my craft. But actually at the time I was kicking myself thinking, this is no good, I'm never going to make a career out of being a nutritionist. But it's those hard yards that you've got to do to get to that place where like people want to start paying you for your time, because you've not just got the degree or the qualifications and the bits on the paper. You've also got other people at other clubs saying, you want to give this guy a shot. You want to use this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we obviously just touched on like free experience in working and getting to know. What was your first ever experience you can remember within the football space of nutritionists?
So my first space, or the first space that I went into, was actually, I went back, this is like a one-off that I did, a special, a limited edition. I went back and I delivered to the local football club around the corner from my parents, just to get some, you know, kind of, I suppose, confidence in front of an audience. And it was the most brutal session I'd ever done. All the parents turned up, and the kids. The kids didn't care. They were running about, didn't want to know. The parents were too locked in. And I've always said it. I was on a stage a couple of years back in Amsterdam talking, and I was speaking to a room full of academics, and I said, you know what? As much as I've got bright lights in my face, like a camera in my face, and a mic in my hand, I said, this is nowhere near as scary as the 40 parents that turned up to my local football club that give me hell. They asked every question you could think of, and then when I didn't have the answer and I went bright red in the face, they just continued. But it was such a learning curve. So that was like my first experience in football. And then from there, I worked with a couple of kind of individuals and athletes around there, and then I kind of stepped out of football for a little bit. Did that bit with Man City, as we said. Stepped out, and then obviously came back into football through Leeds United with their academy.
Sick. What was it like stepping into like the professional space now? So you said you went to Man City, and then now you're at big Leeds United, which is a massive football club. Like, What was the feeling like getting that role at Leeds? Sorry.
Yeah, I think for me,
Yeah.
that position just solidified all the stuff I'd worked for. I think, you know, it really became kind of real. You know, when you've got the badge on your chest, you're walking through the door, take a big deep breath and go, right, this is it. This is the big boy job, really. And I'd had that kind of experience when I'd gone to Warrington Wolves, which I know is a rugby league club. So for a lot of your listeners won't have a clue who Warrington Wolves are. But being a rugby league player myself, I remember sat at the desk there, and this is one of the first jobs I had. And I remember players walking in that I'd idolised and like modelled my game off in rugby. And I was thinking, like, that's Steph Ratchford. And like, I'm grateful that Steph recently retired this year. I had a great conversation with him. No one will know who Steph Ratchford is. A rugby league player potentially will. But ultimately, like, you know, certain players were coming through the door. Darryl Clark, for example, was a hooker, like me, same position. And it was like, I watched him play when he was, you know, a 19-year-old lad. And now he's, you know, 25, 30. And I'm kind of like 21, 22. And I'm like, I emulated your game. And I think after a couple of drinks on one of the staff dues, I was telling them all, you know, I used to look up to you. I had a picture of you on my wall. I remember we got a guy over from Australia, Greg Inglis, who's like a legend in rugby league. I remember doing his skin folds. So that's like the body composition assessments. And I was pinching his skin. And I rang my parents afterwards. I was like, "Oh my god, I've never shaken before." Like trying to do the skin fold calipers and work out the numbers. Because this guy's like, he's a goat. It's like you know, you guys getting all the Cristiano Ronaldo getting to do skin folds or Messi. We'll leave that debate for today. One of the two. But it's like, it's one of those moments where you're like, hang on a minute, this is real. Like, they're trusting me to do this. And yeah, same in football. I think going to Leeds and the academy and the setup they've got there is unbelievable. You know, they've put a lot of investment into their academy, and they've got a lot of practitioners that are very well qualified. And to be part of that kind of group and organisation makes me feel proud, but also at the same time means there's a job to do, and you know, you've got to get it done.
What is like the process of getting a job? Is it simple as jumping on an Indeed and finding a job, or how do you actually get into a club like Leeds? Because there might be someone else that's looking to go down that road. How do they get into this type of line of work?
I think there's a couple of routes depending on the club. So like some of your lower league clubs, for example, I've got friends that work with like Lincoln City Football Club, for example. You know, doing quite well at the moment. I worked with Michael Scabala when he was at Leeds United in the under-21s. So, you know, quite fond of following how he's doing as a manager now at Lincoln. But like with that role, it was like very much somebody posted it on LinkedIn and said, can you come and do it? And one of my friends who's a consultant was like, I can offer my services, and then before you know it, you're through the door like in the kit. Whereas like something like Leeds, because it's a bigger club, it's a lot more formal. So you have to wait for the job to come up, and then obviously you have to nail the interviews. So I ended up doing two interviews, one application process. The first interview was quite literally sitting with the head of nutrition at the time, who's now at West Ham. So he's obviously gone on to Pastors New, but ultimately he was a very good nutritionist, knew him quite well from the industry, and was quite nervous to present my kind of theory and philosophy to him.
Can I just stop you there? So do they ask certain questions to see where your brain is at within nutrition, what you're going to be giving their players? Yeah, what do they want to know from you as such, like to say, we're going to give Dan this job, he's the man to take our team on the healthy route as such. What kind of questions do they ask?
Absolutely. So
you're allowed to say,
no, absolutely. I think, you know, most interview processes are quite well publicised now. The big thing you have to do is present, and obviously they want to make sure that you're comfortable in presenting. Now, again, going back to the 40 parents that I had, I felt quite confident presenting, but the content has to be good. So they want to know what your philosophy is. So I always hold down my philosophy, and I have done for the last kind of nearly 8 years now, with simple, impactful, and purposeful. And that's like my nutrition philosophy. And then I'll go off on tangents in each one of them as to how I can create that as an environment within the club. I've done that across my entire career so far, and it seems to have worked so far. Somebody can steal that one if you want. If you're watching and you're aspiring, chuck that one in. Nobody will know it's mine. And then they ask you a lot of questions around, you know, for me as an academy nutritionist, I'm across the youth development phase, and I'm across the foundation phase, and I'm also across the professional development phase. So for those that don't know, that's kind of your under 9s to kind of your under 16s is your youth and your foundational phase, and then obviously your PDP, your professional development phase, is your 18s and your 21s. The big guns, the Archie Greys, you know, those kind of players that have come through now the academy and have gone on to have careers. Max Dean, who's playing out in Belgium in the Pro League. It's not always the first team players at Leeds that they're going to go on and have a different career, for example. Joe Snowden, who's currently across at Swindon, recently signed a new contract, doing really well. Different players. They want to know how you'd handle different players in different environments.
Cool.
I was just going to ask, actually, how do you do that? Because obviously,
Yeah.
the advice that you're going to give, I don't know, an under 10 player or an under 11 player, whatever, or academy player under 18s is going to be different to a professional, like a first team player. How do you manage it? Obviously, approach is one thing, but in terms of actual nutrition and everything, how does that conversation work?
Absolutely. So you talk about your under 9s. A lot of that is just very, very basic education. What I want really when I'm at Leeds, for example, is I want an under 9s that progresses through the academy, hopefully is successful with their football, and then gets to a point where I get them to under 18s or under 21s, the kind of the professional phase, and I've got no work to do with them. You know, almost like I've taught them everything they need to know. They're doing everything they need to know. But then at the same time, we'll get players that come in from, you know, international, or we'll get players that come in from other clubs or other academies who maybe haven't had that level of education. So the focus then has to be on how do we get them to that level. So there's something called the COM-B model that I use quite a lot. So COM-B stands for capability, opportunity, motivation, drives, behaviour. So COM-B. Now, I try and assess that within every player that I work with. So I want to know what's their capability currently. So as an under 9, it's going to be very low. So we want to set the bar low. We want to make sure that we're teaching them the basics. For under 21, it might be very high, and actually we're looking at the 1%, the supplements. Then we've got opportunity. So it's like, have they got the opportunity to do that? So the under 9s, I'm looking at the parents. I'm speaking to the parents about what they're doing inside the home. Can I give the parents some advice to support them to be able to make that child better at football and better with their healthy nutrition? Or if it's an under 21 who's getting paid fairly handsomely, it might be a case of, have they got the opportunity in terms of, have they got the cooking facilities? Are they able to cook? It's surprising how many footballers you'll meet that come through different academies that don't get those cooking skills, and you've got to teach them at, you know, gone 18 years of age. And then the motivation, you know, some parents, some players just don't want to know. You know, nutrition can be boring, man. Do you know what I mean? It can be really boring unless you can't really make it sexy. You can't make nutrition sexy, really. So you've got to understand their motives. Is it to play better football? Is it to be healthy overall? For some of the parents, it might be, actually, I've got 4 kids, and if you can teach me this for my individual, my under 9, I want to do this for all of my kids, so all of them are healthy. And then that kind of driving behaviour. So then it's kind of looking at different angles. So is it resources? Is it one-to-one work? Is it workshops? Is it practical? Is it theory? Trying to understand what they need individually to be able to support them to progress to the next level.
Sorry, Jay. I was going to ask. It's really interesting that you say that, but a lot of these players nowadays, they have their own chefs. They have their own personal chefs that do everything. This is going to sound silly, but do you have to speak to the chefs? Or is it just they know, or the chefs already know? How does that work? Because rather than the players cooking, because a lot of them, like you said, it's boring. They don't want to spend the time cooking. They'll just have a chef do everything for them. How does that work?
So I suppose in my role at Leeds, have very few players that would have private chefs.
Right.
But in some of my previous roles or some of my other roles, they have had that. And I think often chefs can be difficult to work with at times.
That's what I mean,
I've been very fortunate to work with some really good chefs so far, but I know some nutritionists that have had torrid times trying to change up a menu or switch up something. And I think it's just how you handle that chef. You know, don't take away their creative genius. You know, I think there's a really good chef who was recently on a podcast of a friend of mine's who was at Man City and now privately chefs. And he's looking for angles and ways of getting certain foods into the food without changing the taste profile of food. He was chatting about boiling water in beetroot juice, for example, and whether that gives the nitrates into the pasta. Sometimes you get chefs like that that are trying to be creative, which is really good to work with. And then sometimes you get ones that just want to cook, you know, pastas, lasagnas, and like quite heavy kind of carb-based meals with loads of
my kind
fats.
of chef.
I'm thinking the same thing.
Bring him over. We'll interview him. Tell him to bring some samples with him as well.
And that's where you've got to be smart with picking your battles. You know, if their signature dish is a lasagna and it's, you know, full of beef mince, which we know red meats before a game might potentially take longer to digest, so we don't want athletes feeling heavy or full. It might be that you don't go after that. It might be that you go after the fact that they're making pancakes with, you know, triple cream or double cream even, or whatever it might be. And actually, can we pull some of that back instead? So it's building that relationship, really.
Yeah, I was going to say it must be challenging, man.
Absolutely.
Sick. So I've got a question. So at Premier League level, what is an absolutely non-negotiable food? Like, what's off limits?
Off limits?
Yeah,
wow.
Totally. It's non-negotiable. It's a no.
So I'd say, I know I alluded to it just then, I'd say, like, if we're talking about match performance and off-limit foods, high-fat foods, so, you know, your beefs, your lamb, things like that before a match, because they take too long to digest, I think is the big one. And ultimately, when we think about kind of like foods that are off limit for athletes, sometimes, you look at Ronaldo in his perfect day of eating. No one else is doing that, barring probably Ronaldo, I imagine. And, I think for me, we have to think of a bit of a guidance. And the one that we use is like the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, all the best possible foods that you can get for performance and football. And then 20% of the time, enjoy your foods. Go and have that pizza, have that chocolate bar, whatever it might be. And that then sets the premise for good, healthy eating. Not all of us have tried New Year, New Me. I'm sure we have, where we've gone, I'm going to eat 100% healthy this year. Lasts about 3 days. Footballers can't.
January, the gyms.
Literally
for a week.
Everybody's ordering like Hello Fresh and Thrive meal preps and Fuel Up and whatever. And people are just kind of trying to get the health kick. Footballers are similar, but it's trying to get them to understand that it's not just January. They need to perform for the whole season. So having an 80-20 split, but making sure that 20 doesn't encroach into, match days.
Okay.
You hear about Declan Rice and his pancakes, and I get so many footballers coming to me now going, "Where's the pancakes?" And I'm like, "Look, yes, we can do them, but you got to remember Declan Rice's pancakes aren't the pancakes that you get from the Waffle House down the road. They're very well cultivated with good quality carbs. They don't taste like the ones that you get from the dessert shops.
Protein pancakes,
Absolutely, yeah.
So what's like, are there any like career-killing foods or drinks that footballers should stay away from? Certain drinks, would you say, don't touch that?
There's a couple for me, and one's come to light in the media recently that we'll touch on. But for me, the first one would be kind of looking towards those like sugary fizzy drinks. So when we think about sugary drinks, there's a couple of options really. You've got kind of your sugary drinks that you'd have let's say like a Lucozade original that some people might think is good for sport, but actually the Lucozade Sport's the one that you want.
Okay.
Then you might look at potentially some like the Coca-Colas, Fantas, things like that. That again have got the sugars in that you need to perform, but unfortunately aren't going to be the best version of sugar getting in. The only ones that I'd probably make an exception to when it comes to like carbonated drinks is probably like your Red Bulls or your Monsters or your energy drinks, because you're going after that for the caffeine, not necessarily the sugars that are within it.
Okay.
And then I think the other one that has come to light recently is obviously like raw milk. I know Haaland has caused me too many problems, Haaland. Too many problems. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure he's got his reasons behind why he wants to take raw milk. And there'll be a nutritionist advising on that probably has some good, sound knowledge in and around that. I'm probably not knowledgeable enough around it. But for what I know, the dangers of raw milk is too high for us to risk us using it as a performance benefit. I think, there's some good metaphors around like, kind of like if you've got a petrol car, put petrol in it, don't put diesel in it, because you're risking it's going to break down. And I think for me, like raw milk, the reason why we don't use raw milk is because of the foodborne illnesses in it. You've got E. coli, you've got salmonella, you've got all those risk factors, and you can't guarantee, unless you're Haaland, that you're going to get it from somewhere that's bacteria free.
He's a machine, isn't he?
He's an absolute machine. Don't start fueling the fire.
It's just ridiculous, man.
But I don't believe that raw milk is the sole reason why he's a machine. There's going to be a lot more going on under the hood. And I imagine even if we stepped away from nutrition, there's probably some stuff that he's doing that is beneficial to performance. That's the basics. You watch that day in the life video if you've ever seen it of him. All of the stuff that he does is cultivated to him being a machine. The raw milk is a 1% of that. And I think when you're looking at kids that try to emulate this, the real concern for me, and I'm getting it already within the circles that I'm in, is, well, I need to be doing raw milk because Haaland's using raw milk.
Doing it. They want to follow who's playing well, I suppose.
Absolutely. And if they buy it from the wrong farm, they're going to end up ill. And actually, illness and injury are the biggest causes as to why academy footballers don't get where they want to be.
Do you find that it causes problems when a player puts up what they're eating within what you're trying to do? So, like you just said, Haaland says, I want raw milk. For example, Saka's got his Nando sauce, and he might. We don't know if he's actually eating Nando's. It could just be, marketing, whatever. Do you find that players say, "Nah, I want this, I want that, I want this"? Does it cause friction within your camps or what you're trying to do?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not a footballer with 300 caps and however many goals Haaland's got to his name now. I know, is it 19 for this season? And I think it was his 99th goal today for Man City. Shame he couldn't get the 100th. So I think that would have been quite a good look for him. But, they're not going to listen to me where I've got 0 Premier League goals, 0 appearances, and I never made it as an athlete. And I had this a little bit when I was at Warrington Wolves, and they won't mind me saying this, at the rugby club. Game Changers, the documentary, just come out. So Netflix documentary about veganism within athletes and sports, and we had 4 or 5 of our big prop forwards go on vegan now, like the next day. And they turned up with salads. And I'm going, lads, you're 120 kilograms.
Yeah. You need to eat.
You ain't getting anywhere with a salad.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're going after these salads and these big kind of like big portions of salads, but no carbs in there. And, you know, don't get me wrong, body fat was dropping because their energy intake was so low that the body was just kind of pushing away all of their size and mass. I remember one of the guys ended up dropping down to a point where he might as well have played in the backs or in the lower, the kind of the not as big a roles in rugby. And that was really detrimental. And then you had like Declan Rice's pancakes, Haaland's raw milk, things like that. They don't necessarily just cause problems, but they start building people into this kind of belief that that's the way to do it. But actually in football, all nutrition is individualized. And I think that's the main thing, is that everybody has their own individual approach. You know, if you watch Ronaldo, Haaland, Messi, any of these guys, Neymar, you know, Mbappe, all of these will have a different approach to their nutrition that works specifically for them. So trying to emulate something never works.
Do you know what, Dan? I'm really glad that you brought this up, actually, because I watched a documentary of Roy Keane years ago, and he's talking about when he was a player, when more and more foreign players are coming over, like from the Italian league, from the Spanish league, whatever. He was trying to emulate a couple of them in terms of their diet and their approach.
Was it healthier than?
Well, it was healthier. Theoretically, the food was healthier. But he said if you look between, I can't remember which seasons it was. I think it was around about the 2000, 2001, 2002 season. He said if you look, he goes, my face was quite gaunt. He goes, I was really toned and everything. He goes, but I just didn't feel as strong. And he goes, he remembers going back to Ireland and spoke to his mum, and his mum was like, look at you, don't look like you're eating properly. She's like, have a proper meal. And he said he started eating like proper food again, and he felt a lot better. Do you feel like, depending on your background, depending on your sort of size and your upbringing and what you've eaten, you know, growing up, or what you've been drinking growing up, do you think trying to flip it to something extremely healthy, or that's detrimental rather than actually beneficial?
Yeah, I think there's a sliding scale, isn't there? And if you jump down the wrong side of the wrong path, like Roy Keane, by the sounds of it, did, and was emulating, you know, probably a Mediterranean diet, as opposed
that's
to
what it was.
a Western diet, and his body was so used to Western diet and Western cultured foods that actually, like, you know, going down the route of more salads, more veg to get your carbs in is ultimately not going to be beneficial for his body, because he's got so used to getting them from potatoes or pasta or rice, etc. And I think we do just have to be mindful of, you know, where we start getting our nutrition information from. And even still, like within a single culture, for example, like if Roy Keane was to take that to Ireland and all of the boys at Ireland were to then, you know, kind of try and emulate that, it might work for maybe 10% of them. But again, within that single cohort of players, there'll be differences. And that's why, you know, you watch these, you know, inside the training ground kind of videos, and you see such a vast variety of food on offer. Because you have to be able to tailor for, you know, an individual and a squad. And one of the ones I always say to some of the young players is, like, watch any of those videos. None of those players have scales in front of them. None of them are weighing the foods out. They're doing it by eye, and they're listening to the body and understanding the body. I think that's such an important factor in nutrition, is, you know, if, you know, Haaland's there, like we've been speaking about, spooning his food onto his plate at the training ground, he's not mindful of the fact that, you know, he's got to get 120 grams of pasta or whatever it might be. He's visualizing that and going, okay, that looks enough for me. And I think that's so important to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah, fairs.
Sick. What would like a perfect match day eating schedule be, from breakfast to post game meal for like, let's say a striker? Speaking about Ireland, what would that be?
Absolutely. So it'll all depend on the time of the kickoff.
Okay, cool.
Because we've got to try and make sure that
we're gonna do Super Sunday.
4:30.
Super Sunday. Let's do a Super Sunday. Yeah, Super Sunday.
So it would most likely start 3 days before for most players.
Wow. Serious.
Now we're not talking about carb loading that heavy before then, or else you'd be watching players roll around the pitch as opposed to run around the pitch. But 3 days out would be like your individual preparation phase. So don't miss a meal. Make sure you're well hydrated. Stay on top of your caffeine levels. Don't let it go too high, too low, whatever it might be. Be mindful of the fruit and veg that you're intaking and the quality of the foods that you have in 3 days out. Then you'd look at -2, so 2 days before the game, which would be a transition phase. So that's where we start transitioning to more carbohydrates. So that's where maybe with every meal, we're looking at just that extra spoonful of pasta, extra spoonful of rice to make sure that we're getting more carbs in. Snacks still stay the same across the day. You know, footballers eat a lot of food. They need a lot of food because they burn a lot of energy. -2 still going to be quite a big training load, big training day. -1 is going to be a lighter training day, but that doesn't mean that the carbs need to stop coming in. It's the best time to get them in. I would say to a lot of footballers, if you don't like eating on a match day, then you still need to eat, but you can eat less if you do more in a -1.
Right.
So match day -1, loading phase. So you've gone from individual prep phase, transition phase, and then loading phase. Now the loading phase would be that carb load that you're thinking of. Every meal, every snack, aiming for some good quality sources of carbs. Maybe a pre-bed snack of like yogurt, granola, and fruit with some honey. Just a really good bookend to the day. Then we move into match day. So that would be Saturday if we're talking Super Sunday, 4:30. So then we'd look at a standardised breakfast of high carbs, which we could be having that.
Is there a certain time? Sorry to cut. Is there like a certain time on a match day they need to eat by, or like a window? Should I say?
Yeah. So the thing for me is like breakfast when it's a 4:30 kickoff, as we're talking about, is not as important as a 12:30 kickoff. Okay. Your last big meal needs to be between 3 to 4 hours before the match. Yeah. So let's say we were playing the 12:30. That means that last meal would be the breakfast. So you're looking, 12:30, you take 3 hours off that, you're talking kind of like 11:30, so your last big meal. Now that could potentially be kind of breakfast into a small lunch, or it could be kind of, I suppose, a small breakfast and then a second breakfast to top up. If it's a 4:30, then our last big meal is going to be around 1:30, quite a standard time for lunch. Once we've hit that pre-match meal, as we call it, and typically for professional teams, that'll be done within the hotel as a group, as a team. We've then got an opportunity to snack leading into the game. So that's where players will have their own individual snacks, or they'll have a nutritionist, for example, providing those snacks. So 90 minutes before a game. So let's say what we said, 4:30, so we're talking 3 o'clock. We'd be having our last kind of main snack. Now that could be a flapjack, that could be a cereal bar, it could be something along those lines. Then 60 minutes before the game. I know it sounds a lot of food, doesn't it?
But, I did a decent things. I didn't. No, you interesting, man.
60 minutes before the game, that would be final optional opportunity to eat some food, really. Like you can't really start, digesting that food. You need the 60 minutes to allow that food to digest. Again, some players a lot for a piece of fruit, like a banana. Some players a lot for, for example, like another cereal bar or some form of kind of oat-based bar. And then you've got the kind of like the last hit of food that you'd go for, which is 30 minutes before.
So they go again?
Yeah, so well, when I say food, we're calling this changing room snacks, really. So
can you eat a banana at the 30-minute mark, or is it?
Yeah,
so I know banana is energy-wise.
And high in potassium, so helps reduce cramps. But when we think about that 30-minute snack, the key really there is to go after something that's high in sugars. So what we're trying to do is get some sugars in the body
to boost the energy.
We get a boost of energy, which then kind of delays the use of all that good work you've done with the carbs, because you use that energy first, then you go into your long-lasting carbs. So for health-conscious athletes, they'd go towards like dried fruits, potentially like a sports drink, like a sugary sports drink. For not so health-conscious athletes, we don't see this very much in the professional game of football, but certainly in like the youth development side of it. Potentially like a small bag of Haribos now. I know Halloween's been and gone, but
or if you're Jamie Vardy,
a
cigarette and a Red Bull.
But like again, that 30-minute hit of sugars is so key. That's where some of the athletes might opt towards supplements like a gel. So that would be the opportunity to get a gel in, or a caffeine gum or something like that, just to really emulate some more energy, like you say, give them that boost. And that would be about 30 minutes before. And then that's kind of it. Hydration, water, potentially some electrolytes before the game, maybe some form of caffeine drink. Jamie Vardy is probably on his 8th Red Bull by then, I imagine, or whatever. I can't remember who it was, quoted that the other week, saying he used to run around saying, I'm an eagle or something in the changing room, or I'm an ox or something like that. Guy. And he'd just down another Red Bull and go again.
Red Bull's actually good for you, though. This is the thing. I thought, I'm under the impression that like Monsters, Red Bull, they're not good for you, all this caffeine. So where does it lie?
I think everything in moderation. So thinking of all these energy drinks, Red Bull, Monster, Carabao Energy, whatever it might be, athletes use them to get more energy because you've got a mix of sugars and you've got a mix of caffeine. And to be honest, like for example, Red Bull is quite a low dose of caffeine in comparison to a Monster. So if you look at a Red Bull, it's around, I think, 75 milligrams of caffeine per small can. A Monster in their big can's 200 milligrams. Wow. So all of a sudden, you're changing.
So I need to lay off the Monsters. Because I drink Monsters, it's got ginseng in it, so I'm like...
So again, like in moderation, in football, the reason why you see a lot of players going for these drinks is because they can be beneficial to performance. Obviously, we're looking in the academy. In an ideal world, we want to reduce the amount of caffeine that's being used in the academy because players aren't as developed as somebody who's 25 years old playing in the Premier League. We want to wait until that moment. Plus, you can also get to that point of caffeine, which I'm sure all three of us are, where we don't really get that feeling from caffeine anymore. Just numb. And overdosing almost on caffeine for a prolonged period of time builds your tolerance. Whereas if we can keep an academy player away from caffeine, when it comes to their first team kind of appearances, they can use caffeine as an effective supplement then, because they don't have that kind of built-in, already kind of, I suppose, overdosed on it, etc.
Okay, sick. How big of a difference does hydration make in performance and energy? And how much, like you said, how much water do they need to get in within match day or the 3-day running to the full day? How much water do they need to be taking?
So there was a study that came out not too long ago within football. It was for every 1% an athlete or a footballer is dehydrated, it can have a 10% detriment to their performance.
Wow.
So you imagine like the levels, especially in the summer when they're playing, kind of coming back in the August, for example, or finishing the season in May, how much that can have an effect on a player. And for me, hydration is one of those like secret weapons that a lot of players don't think about, because you don't get too many opportunities in a game to drink, especially, if there isn't the opportunity to run to the side and drink some water. And you'll see a lot of players, like some nutritionists are really strategic. I know the guy at Leeds who was there prior to who's in now used to leave a water bottle at each corner flag and a water bottle at the halfway line. So players that were on the other side of the pitch that couldn't get across for a drinks break had the opportunity to grab some water. So for me, hydration is massively important. Now the numbers on hydration are astronomical. So you're supposed to have 250 mils approximately every 15 to 20 minutes of football. So you're talking per hour a litre effectively, or at maximum 750 mils, sorry, minimum a litre maximum. No footballer's really going to be able to get that in during the game. You're not going to get the opportunity to. It's a fast-moving game.
Pisses on it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You'd see them queuing for the toilets half time. Running into the stands to use the toilets as opposed to the changing room ones. So what we do is say like as little and often sips as you can get in, or sorry, not as little and often, like little and often. So don't aim for like downing a full bottle of water during a break, but actually just sipping as every opportunity you get. I think I spoke with a football coach and I was telling him this because I noticed his players just weren't drinking. They were coming in, taking messages from the coach, and the water bottles were staying on the bench. And this was, a kind of lower league side. And I said, look, the reason why you bring them in is, give them your message, but take on board water. And he said, I always thought, especially at the top levels like the Premier League, the reason why they pretended to drink water was so they could get messages on. But actually, no, it's twofold. Get your messages on and drink water.
So it keeps... So what does actual water do? Is it for the mind, the energy in the body? What does it actually do?
It helps the body thermoregulate for a start,
Okay.
which means it keeps the body's temperature down,
Okay.
which then stops us from exhaustion, fatigue, etc. It also helps us with, like you say, mental clarity. So it allows our brain to function properly, which is really important in football. Picking the right pass, making the tackle at the right time, hitting the right side of the goal, not going down the middle like today, as Haaland tried to do, and ultimately looking at those kind of like 1%ers is really important. I think where people do get it wrong though is electrolytes. So electrolytes we'll have heard of before.
I take that,
And it's where you're like, oh no.
I was thinking, here we go. Rob me.
Electrolytes are a good thing to have. But what a lot of people don't realise is that during a 90-minute football match, we're going to be able to absorb very little of those electrolytes because the body's working hard just to pull water in. It's working hard just to pull the fluids in. It's not going to be able to pull in the electrolytes that we need to replace what's lost through sweating. So what we need to do is similar to carbs, we need to load up on the electrolytes to an extent. So like using electrolytes performance or at half time is much better than having it in your bottle during a game because we know in the science that actually we absorb very little of those electrolytes if we're sipping on it. Have it before, not during, and then if we need to at half time as well.
It's just crazy how much goes into it, man. How much
mad.
preparation and planning, and this is why the players always talk about I'm working hard, I'm preparing myself, this is exactly what they're talking about.
So a lot goes into
the way you've got to live your life.
The way
you've got to live your life as an athlete.
Look at all the food you got to eat and make sure you're staying on point, drinking your waters, and it's mad, man.
I think I've got a lot of thanks to Arsene Wenger, to be fair. He was one of the first in the Premier League that brought a nutritionist in and saw the value in it. And I think it's progressed since then, and I'm sure that first nutritionist will know who they are. I'm sure. I'm thinking I called this, but it's become a big part of it. And like you say, the physical preparation's one side of it. You've got some brilliant strength conditioning coaches, psychologists. Kind of physiotherapists keeping them on the pitch.
Yeah.
But then actually, like, the food side of it needs to be also as nailed as that. So, it's what goes on the menus at the training ground to make sure players are eating and all of that stuff.
I got to ask a question. Are they allowed to take supplements like lion's mane? Obviously, you see Shilajit, it's like a popular thing. Jinxing, as I mentioned before. Are footballers allowed to take these supplements, or is there certain... Is it like drugging? Doping?
The tests. And
where's the line on those things? Like,
so there's regulation, as there has to be, because then you could get people that are doping, as they call it.
Yeah.
So there's UK Anti-Doping, which is kind of the main agency that controls that. And then there's also like WADA, that's the World Anti-Doping Agency, that set out the rules as to what you can have. So like a really simple one is like tramadol, for example, a strong painkiller, was put on the WADA list for all athletes going forward from January 2025. So there's athletes using tramadol as a pain medication, wasn't allowed to use it anymore. Found in your system, you barred from your sport. Right. When it comes to supplements, it gets really tricky because certain products are considered supplements and some aren't. So like your Lucozade Sport and your Red Bulls, although they've got caffeine in and carbohydrate-based solutions, they're considered food products, so they're not tested. But then they're tested by the Food Safety Agency. Okay. But like powderized supplements or like your ginseng, your Shilajit and all of that stuff, lion's mane that you're speaking about, haven't really taken off in sport, and the reason for it is there's no science behind it. Okay, but also the challenge is finding one that's being batch tested. So there's a company called Inform Sport. What they do is they test every single batch of supplements that comes through the run of the mill to make sure it's safe and has no prohibited substances for athletes. Okay. So they have to make sure they're taking supplements that are approved by this authority and are tested. And I think there was a start. This is going back a fair few years. I should probably have an updated one from 2014 of the UK supplements that were tested that weren't Informed Sport. 18.6% of them contained prohibited substances that could get a player banned. Oh wow! So like even just going to your local, kind of supplement store, you're risking that 18% potentially. Yeah. I thankfully in the career haven't had an athlete, touch wood, that has ever been tested or has been found to have anything from a supplement anyway that's got them barred from the sport. So it's so important they're careful and they're mindful of the kind of the supplements.
Yeah, and again, it's another side to it, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much that's got to go into it.
It's just
it's not. It's absolutely not.
Who would you say is like the most professional eater at Leeds, and any young player that sees him should emulate his diet? Would you say?
Yeah. Great
shout.
shout.
To say,
of course I can say. I think the one for me that really stands out in terms of who I've seen, let's say within the first team, and I've seen the food that he has, which is probably one that you wouldn't expect, is Sam Byram. Okay. Ex-academy player there. Coming towards the latter stage of his career, which I'm sure he did himself, has, the best habits in the world when it comes to food, has the best routines when it comes to food. And I'd say probably, the whole of Leeds United, including the academy lads, are very good. I think once you get to that level of professionalism and you're getting paid to do your sport, you have to take those 1%
serious.
You have to be. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, sick. Any questions, Frank?
No, do you know what? There was a couple of questions that I wanted to ask. I think we're going to have to wrap up in a minute. But do you know what? No, there was one question I wanted to ask. I look at... it must be hard for nutritionists when you've got different managers with different ideas that come in as well. Because to give an example, I remember when Romelu Lukaku, when he went to Man United, he was quite fit and trim and do you know what I mean? Like quite toned and slim and everything because when he came from Everton. But Jose wanted him to be bigger and stronger because he wanted him to be like a crash the box number 9. And obviously that sort of affected his game a bit. But then when he went to Italy from United, Conte wanted him back to be slim and trim again. Yeah. So how does that like change things for yourselves in terms of, because you got to have different ideas, don't you?
Yeah,
depending on the manager and how they want to play.
Yeah, I think I wasn't at Leeds United during the Bielsa days, but during the Bielsa days, obviously Leeds iconic. But he would be very keen, and it's been well documented by the nutritionist and the team that was there. Around he wanted players at specific weights. I think even some of the players like your Luke Ayling and your Liam Coopers have come out and spoke about this. But you have to be at your target weight every single day without fail, and that was one of his things. And as the nutritionists at the time, not me but the others, were trying to find ways in which they could support the players with this. So trying to make sure that food was very well calculated so that it wasn't pushing them over the weight that they needed to be. I think Bielsa had a big feeling about if you weren't the right weight or you were too heavy, you were going to be that half a pace too slow. If you were too light, you weren't going to have that strength, etc. I think I've seen it with managers, coming in and kind of ruling the roost, and especially coming in and going, okay, well, we're not doing oils anymore. We're not putting oils out on the tables for guys to have olive oil, good healthy oil, but we're not having that. Or sauces is a classic one. I know Ben Foster's said many a times about his ketchup addiction, and when he was at Watford, I think he got in trouble with one of my friends who's the nutritionist, because they were at a pre-match hotel and he was filming as he did, and he was shaking this bottle of ketchup round, and my friend at the time that was there as the nutritionist is walking past in the background of this video. So he gets pulled in an office with the manager. He was with the first team at the time. I think it was Ranieri. I think it was maybe at the time at Watford. The manager and some of the guys from like the head of performance, and they just showed him this clip on repeat. And he was like, "What's the problem?" Yeah. And they're going, "Well, you've just walked past and you've not said anything." He went, "He's filming a YouTube video. Like, I don't want to be in that." Yeah. And they're going, "Yeah, but he's mocking you with the tomato sauce right in front of you as you walk past. You even look at it, and they're like freeze framed you like VAR, looking at this sauce. Going, you looked at it and you didn't say anything. Yeah. We've told you need to call him out on that." And he was like, "I'm not confident in doing that. I'm not comfortable in doing that because I don't." And he said to me, "I don't believe in the fact that sauces are going to make such a big difference." Especially when it's somebody like him who's a goalkeeper that isn't looking at the 1% speed or whatever it might be. So those kind of aspects happen a lot. I've seen it a lot, and a lot of friends in nutrition have had this kind of like, we're barring red meat, because red meat's bad, because the manager's read an article in a paper. And then you got some managers that are going, well, bacon sandwiches should be a staple at breakfast, and they want bacon sandwiches, but trim the fat off, but keep the bacon out. Or like, we're going to do sausages, but we're not going to do pork sausages, we're going to do chicken sausages because they're healthy, because the manager wants a full English breakfast in front of him. Or like, I've seen it with some of my mental. Some of the guys that I know in nutrition as well have had it where like the staff will eat separate to the players. So let's say they're going to a hotel for a pre-match. The staff will be away in some kind of private dining area, getting, dined and everything else, potentially a few beers the night before while the players are tucked up in bed. And actually, like that's quite common. And he's, because staff technically will eat the food that the players have. But like, staff don't necessarily need to have, the perfect food to be on form. They're not going to get, dragged on the pitch at some point and asked to play. I mean, it would be interesting. Yeah,
but maybe it's Arteta.
Are you versatile? Can you play 10, 8, and also a 7? Yes, right, you're on. Put a shirt on.
Good at corners.
Yeah. Can you do a long throw?
Right. Man. Before we wrap it up, man, have you got any like a message for any young players, especially because I feel like it's important for them to get on the right path? You got a message for young players getting into football?
No, absolutely. I'll stare down the camera at this one as well. I think for young players, what we spoke about in today's episode is all about like finding your own niche when it comes to nutrition. Don't copy or emulate what the professionals are doing. Don't read articles online that aren't, done by professionals, and make sure that you just be mindful of your nutrition. When we look at footballers, habits are the biggest thing that get them through, whether that be, doing an extra 10 minutes at training as you hear about these players, or eating the right foods at the right time. But also don't pull away that enjoyment from food. I think enjoyment is the biggest factor to nutrition. So find food that works for you, and then make sure you're still putting that enjoyment in there.
Okay, sick. Did you give someone a tip? Like, what's a good start off point within foods they should eat quickly?
I would say, when we're looking at carbohydrates, what we want to look towards doing is using our fists. So a good plate of carbohydrates before a game is 2 fistfuls of carbohydrates. So we're looking down at our plate, we want to see 2 full fistfuls of carbs, and that means we're hitting the right numbers to be able to get the most energy out of our performance.
Okay, sick, brilliant. Man. Thank you, man. Thank you for that, Dan. Thank you for coming down as well, man. I appreciate it, man. Really knowledgeable episode, man. And you had me stunned. I was just like, wow, what's going on? Right, do you want to plug your social media as well so anybody can find you if they're allowed to find you?
Yeah, I'm not some elusive character. I do have a social media, and I try and post stuff on there that is actually relevant to nutrition and gives you the right advice instead of following some of the influencers out there. It's at DRN Nutrition, which quite literally stands for Dan Richardson Nutrition. Okay, nutrition.
Okay, sick, man. And that's the episode, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Get healthy. Don't be like me doing burger challenges outside. I need to come to Leeds to do a burger challenge. All right, ask Dan to give me a healthy burger. We'll do a healthy burger. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the episode, man. Like, subscribe, comment, and yeah, man, we'll be back next week with another episode. Peace.